Welcome back, everybody, to the Identity Jedi Show. We are, of course, live in Vegas, Identiverse 2024, for another installment of the Founder Series. This time, we've got three-time guests on the podcast. I think this is the most anybody's been on one of my podcasts, so I'm going to get blasted for that in text threads when people hit me up about it. But, I mean, he's kind of worth it. Special guest, Jom John. Welcome, man.
Make this an annual thing.
We should make this an annual thing because we only see each other like every 2 years.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair. So
I was a hermit for a while.
you were a hermit for a while, right? I mean, you know, Chicago will do that to you. I think Chicago will do that to you.
You gotta hibernate.
So first, real quick, Identiverse. What's the show been like for you so far?
It's been good. You know, the tough part about Identiverse for me is always, like you said, you know, you see people kind of once a year. So I'm always catching up and networking and seeing what's new and walk around the expo hall versus actually going to the sessions as much as I'd like. So, you know, I'll go to the keynote and, you know, always bookmark my schedule to be like, oh yeah, definitely want to hear this talk. And then chatting up with someone I haven't seen for a while and end up missing it. So trying to get in more sessions this time.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes. So far, not good.
Yeah, I've yet to attend a session yet. So I'm going to try and get in some tomorrow. I don't think I'll get in any today. So I don't know. I'm going to do the bill crawl thing later tonight, though. That should be interesting. So, all right. So we wanted to talk about, you know, I've been doing this installment called the Founder Series, talking to different people who've founded companies and just kind of getting a day in the life of like what it's really like. All right. I think we tend to glorify, you know, entrepreneurship, which I'm all about. But also like just giving people like the real, like everything that comes with it, right? People look at it and they say, oh, it's this, and you know, control your own schedule, you're on your own boss, all these things, and it's like those are the good things about it. There's also some I won't call them bad things, I'll say some challenges.
The reality.
Yeah, the reality of it, and the challenges that kind of come with it. So just kind of walk me through like, you know, your company that you have now, how you got there, and like what went into you deciding like, hey, this is something I want to do.
So I've been doing kind of independent work in consulting for the last 8 years. But about 2 years ago, my business partner, Roberto Weller, based out of Guatemala, he reached out to me and was like, hey, you know, when he used to work for SailPoint, he went down to Mexico City and started up the Mexico City office, recruited, trained, got some fantastic services resources on projects. And I built up a relationship with them because a lot of times those resources, you have to pair with someone that's a little more senior to handle the client management, architecture, design, and those resources. You give them clear requirements and they'll knock it out as well as anyone I've seen. Roberto did a fantastic job of recruiting and doing all that, and I truly enjoyed working with his resources. Right. And so when he reached out to me, he knew I've been doing independent for a while, and he was like, hey, you know, what we built or what we did there, I'd like to do as a company between me and him. So we started Core 2 about 2 years ago now. You know, we're slowly growing, the vision of the company isn't to be this massive services organization that's going to, you know, rival anybody. Right. And this is, I think, maybe a little bit different from an entrepreneur standpoint is that, you know, a lot of people ask me, even just this morning, I was meeting with somebody and they're like, you know, are you still doing the day-to-day hands-on work, meeting with clients, implementing the products? And I was like, yes, honestly, that is what I love. That's what keeps me going. You know, if I'm just heads down writing code and things like that, you know, it's a great day for me. But most people are kind of taken aback by that. And they're like, don't you hire people so you don't have to do the day-to-day and deal with clients and, you know, project work? But honestly, I feel like, and when I'm talking to clients, I'm talking to people about the technology, you know, there's the marketing sales side of it, but when you're truly hands-on and you see kind of the operational side and the maintenance that's required and kind of like what sounds good versus what is reality for these clients and the challenges they're having, it may, you know, not make the list of the top 20 things that clients are asking for feature enhancements and things like that, but it's the day-to-day muck that the service desk folks or the admins have to go through. And kind of seeing that, I think it gives me a perspective about the products I'm implementing that I don't want to lose that.
Right.
So that's, I think, part of it is the enjoyment, and part of it is that I still like doing the day-to-day hands-on work.
God bless you, man. I don't, not me, but you know, it's each his own. So take me back to like Roberto makes that call, says, "Hey, I want to do this together," which to me is always going to put a smile on my face because of my chance to work with Roberto when he was IE at Cellpoint. At the time he was a kid, loved the kid to death. Obviously he's grown now, whatever. But like, what's your thought process when that happens? Like, okay, hey, this sounds interesting. Kind of walk me through your decision of deciding like, yeah, we're going to go through with this.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing was Roberto's personality. I think me and him are kind of on the same wavelength in terms of, our goals isn't, hey, we're trying to be this size or hit this dollar figure. It's, we've both been in consulting for a while, him with SailPoint, myself independently, and then after he left SailPoint, he actually did some independent building product down in Guatemala as well, which is where he met some of the great resources that we have in the company today. And, that's the type of person I want to start a company with, to be like, we're not trying to just burn and churn resources so they can hit billable hours, actually provide value and enjoy the people we work with. And Roberto actually brought it up to be like, I want to build a company that I would want to work for. So that's kind of been our guiding vision that we try to stay aligned to. So far we've kind of stuck in the wheelhouse of SailPoint with Identity IQ and Identity Security Cloud. The other, question I get asked a lot, at these conferences where, are you looking at expanding into other products and technologies? And I love coming here because, my background when I was at IDMWorks and director there was working with kind of a plethora of technologies, whether it was Oracle, NetIQ, CA. But I would say, we've kind of stayed in the wheelhouse of SailPoint because it's twofold. One, the technology is great. They're number one for a reason. Yeah. Two, at least my experience, and everyone has their own experience, so I'm sure someone's listening to this be like, that's not been my experience with SailPoint, but they've obviously been fantastic with me. When I went independent, whenever you make that first jump, it's always a risk of, especially with a wife and kid, is this going to be consistent work? And SailPoint honestly gave me a fantastic opportunity and enabled me, put me on some great projects, and that really kind of set my future along these past 8 years. So part of it is loyalty. I mean, they've been fantastic to me. I'm not going to try to compete against that. And obviously, they even everything they've done, I've appreciated.
That's awesome, man. So once you guys got it together, so Core 2 forms, right? You and Roberto have the conversation. What's that first year like, right? Kind of pulling it together and saying, now it's like, hey, we got the idea, we got the team, now we got to turn this into a company.
Yeah, I mean, the first year is always training. We're hiring these resources, and the first few resources that we've hired, fantastic development skills, but they're new to identity.
Right.
So it's not just, hey, let's train them on the product because they're fantastic developers and they can write code, but having them understand, what we're doing from a security, landscape, and infrastructure perspective. So we kind of built up that training program, put our first resource through that, and we got lucky, knock on wood, that our first resource just knocked it out of the park. Obviously, it hasn't been like that since. It never is. But the year one was a lot of refining our process to figure out what works when we're onboarding, figuring out the gaps when they're on projects. So, it's nearshoring that what we do. Our resources right now are in Guatemala and Argentina. So it's, how are their English speaking skills? What's our training path for taking them from an IE and making them a solution architect, improving their English skills so that as they mature in their technical abilities, they're also maturing in their speaking and ability to manage the client relationship.
Right.
That's kind of the biggest thing I think right now with the company in terms of growth is Roberto and I are still, very hands-on with the clients that we're working with, and we do a lot of the relationship management. I think slowly as these resources, technically they're there, we have to work on the soft skills to say you can manage this resource and requirements and hours and all of that independently of us being involved, and that'll allow us to grow. So I think that is probably the next step within the company.
Okay. You mentioned that you and Roberto, right, you like the mix, like you guys, your personalities kind of, fit together. And I've talked to other founders, and that's, everybody said that's super important when you have a co-founder, like making sure that's there. Talk to me a little bit about that relationship with you and Roberto. How important was that for you?
Yes.
to make sure that, hey, if I'm going to do this, right? So your point when you said you first went independent, like, you got a family to feed, like there's a lot kind of going into this. So now you're bringing somebody else, and it's like, how important was that to you? And like, what was like internally, what was that process for you? Like, okay, I like Roberto, but like, do I want to go into business with Roberto, right? Like, and this isn't, Roberto, I love you. This isn't picking on you. I just from the aspect of anybody watching this, if they're looking at doing something, they want to go get a co-founder, just kind of walk through that process of what you were thinking, like, okay, these are the things I kind of want to understand and know before.
I mean, I'd love to say, I had this grand thought out exercise and, interviewed and did all this stuff. But no, I mean, it honestly, a lot of it is a leap of faith, hoping that the personality that you've worked with in the past and know, after working 2 years in, thankfully it is what I expected.
Right.
I think the big thing with Roberto and myself is, no one's looking to blame anybody. No one's looking to say, well, I'm doing X amount and you're not pulling your weight or anything like that. We're both very much, this needs to get done. Who's better skilled to do it? Who's more available to do it? How can we turn this around? And I think that's really helped. That I've never felt in the 2 years working with Roberto now that hey, I messed up here and Roberto got on me for that. We hold ourselves self-accountable, and I think that part is great, and that's allowed us to grow.
Yeah. So, talk me through like, how do you deal with like the bad days, right? When running a business just sucks, right? It's just like, whatever it is, customers upset or, things aren't billing the right way, whatever, right? That there's going to be bad days that come with this. Talk me through kind of what you do to get through those, and like, what advice would you give somebody if they're going through that as a founder?
Yeah, I've heard this from a lot of other people. I think the personal life and work life are really kind of married together. And I think my personal life being stable has helped me kind of get through when work life is kind of crazy. So great support system at home with the wife and my daughter. I think that, honestly, is number one that gets me through work, because then you kind of realize, as important as work is, work is work.
Yeah.
Every client is really important, but at the end of the day, they're a client that is a, tangential relationship.
Right.
So having that stability, I think, has helped me a lot. B, I think just going through the consulting fires. I mean, you've been there with me.
Yeah.
After getting and identity access management, the big thing is everyone I feel like does kind of underestimate it a bit in terms of complexity, in terms of all the different business units you have to deal with and get buy-in, and how you're always kind of even selling your product internally to your own company when you're trying to get apps to onboard, and you're dealing with some Microsoft architect or AD architect, and it's like, well, I can do this through a PowerShell script. Why do I need your product? Why do I need to integrate with you? You're taking time out of my day.
Active Directory is mine.
Right.
We got everything we need. Yeah.
Right. So like going through that over the years, I think has kind of, hardened a little bit, so that you're used to the constant state of identity management. I feel like on projects is a little bit of, hey, why isn't this working the way it should? Is there product issues, implementation? What is causing this issue? And instead of trying to blame, it's more, and similar to my relationship with Roberto, like, how do we fix this? How do we go forward? What is the next step? What is the workaround? And just keep pushing forward. And I think that helps a lot. When you have a down day, it's not, you always do want to be reflective and figure out how not to make the same mistake again. But the biggest thing I think is, just keep pushing forward. And I think the clients understand, like, the biggest thing for consulting for me is, if I'm billing a specific hour, do I feel like the client's getting value out of that? Or am I just billing to, and I've worked with resources like this. That's honestly the biggest issue I have in consulting is there's a lot of resources that'll just bill 40 hours, whether they worked it or not. And I'm always like, the customer is making this investment with our company. So I want to make sure that, if they look at a bill at the end of the day and they're, whatever it may be that month, 120 hours, 160 hours, that there's a list of accomplishments or things done that they can go back to and never have to question, well, did I really get my money's worth, working with this company?
So let's fast forward like 5 years from now, right? I know you said, it's not your goal or you and Roberto's goal to have like this big, huge services company, but what is like, where do you see Core 2 like 5 years from now?
Yeah, I know, that's a fantastic question. We are looking to grow it, but grow it kind of organically and grow it at the pace that makes sense. So yeah, there's definitely a bottleneck right now with, us. I do think Roberto and myself being less billable. I'll still say hands-on and as involved as.
You're not letting it go, man. You're not letting it go.
But besides that, yeah, just working through kind of organically going, building our skill sets, building more senior leadership within the company as well. So I think one of the big things that over the next 5 years is that we have trusted senior resources that can soup to nuts take care of a project and I don't need to be involved.
Yeah.
So I think that would be the goal of the next 5 years, to take the next step in the company.
I don't ever see you letting go, man. Like I think you're gonna be hands-on projects like until you guys shut this down, man. Like I just haven't known you as long as I have, right? But and you talked about earlier though, like I know you enjoy it though, right? And that's one of the things I do appreciate about you and what I like about what you and Roberto are doing, because to your point about consultants and going about it the right way, there is this is the craft, this is what you do, right? And there should be some level of really ownership in the work that you deliver, to a client, right? And I think when I first got into consulting, things I would tell people that were coming up, it's like, don't think of it as like you're billing it, I said, I don't think of it as like, I'm billing this hour to deliver this thing to this customer. I thought of it as like, I'm taking this time to craft this is my art, this is the things that I do, right? And so I want to make sure that I'm taking the time and delivering a quality product. The output of that is 4 hours worth of work or 8 hours worth of work, or, you know what I mean? And it's just, that comes across, right? Like it whenever you deliver something, you're going to take that extra time to document your code and lead better documentation, or write a little bit more on that report or things like that, whatever. So you make sure that it's like, here is what I created for you, and like the customer appreciates that, right? And I think listen, consulting's hard. It's a grind. There's going to be days. There's going to be weeks where you're just like, man, like, oh, I got to do this again, over and again, and it gets repetitive. But having that thought into like what you deliver and putting that quality into it, I think kind of goes a long way. So, I'm always rooting for you, man. I especially because like you go off and do that. I just can't do it. It's never something that, it's always weird. Like I've always been very good at consulting. Yes, I enjoy it to an extent, but it's not like, I don't love it that much to want to do it. Like I'm just like, nah, pass.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's got to find the passion.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You're fantastic with these podcasts. Like I said, this is the third time that I'm doing it, and I feel like it's always an easy conversation. And I feel like once you figure out what you love doing, it comes across in your work. You always have great questions, you're prepared. These are the easiest podcasts. Like I'm, like most people, like the number one fear is public speaking. I sucked at public speaking up until probably 10 years ago. But these conversations are easy, and I think it's because you can see the effort and just the growth of the podcast itself that you've done, that I appreciate. And yeah, that passion, I feel like clients definitely see that. I don't want to say you can fake it. Obviously, people are pretty good.
We all know some people who do.
Yeah. But I do think clients at the end of the day, they'll figure it out. Yeah. They know, like, do you know what you're talking about? Are you, truly invested in the same vision that they have when you're implementing it? And, it's odd saying that about identity and access management, but, this is what I'm passionate about. Yeah. This is what, the client is, that's what is important to them.
And listen, I appreciate it. The run on the podcast has been crazy. I didn't plan it out this far, right? I always think things big, so I did kind of have a plan. I didn't see this coming, but I enjoy it. I love doing it, so I appreciate it. And we just need some more sponsorships. So I want to wrap up on this line of questioning. So let's say somebody comes up to you and says, "Listen, I want to go independent. I want to start my own thing, right? I want to build a company." What advice would you give to that person?
What I would say, similar to kind of what you said, when you started the podcast, yes, you thought big and yes, you had a vision, but you don't expect it to get to where you are. So, a lot of people, I feel like, try to plan out, like you said, have a 5-year plan, but it's not going to go exactly like your 5-year plan expected. So the biggest thing about if you're going to go independent, like I did, is get that first contract. Once you get that first gig and get yourself independent and set up, then you can build from there.
Right.
Don't try to think I have to have everything outlined perfectly. I know exactly what I'm going to do for the next 5 years, or I need some long 2-year contract with a client before I'll jump. When I first jumped, it was a 3-month contract that I had. That was it. And that 3-month turned into a 1.5 years.
Right.
It got renewed. There was more phases that need to be done, and then it just kind of took off from there.
Nice. Yeah, I would tell you don't do it, but this is we're talking about now going on 8 years independent now, 2 years with Core 2. Obviously, you've been very successful at it, so I appreciate you taking the time and kind of sharing some of that. Before we wrap up, ask a couple of fun questions, right? What is some of the favorite things that you love to do when you come to Vegas?
Oof. Funny enough, so I've been in Vegas since Friday because I bought the wife and daughter out.
Absolute
It's the longest I've ever been. 2 days is usually enough. However, I have not gambled once.
Okay, well, we're gonna change that.
Later tonight, I'll probably donate some money at the craps table. But I mean, Vegas it's different. Like, when in my 20s when I'm here, hanging out, going clubbing and all that. Now it's like every day's been different. Friday we went to Circus LA and Yellowtail for dinner with the family. Saturday saw Chris Angel Mind Freak, and went to Din Tai Fung. It was good. The only thing was, so they were recording live. And so they constantly wanted us out of our seats and yelling and waving our hands. And I'm like, this is way too much work for me. But and then just seeing everyone at the conference.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a little bit of everything here in Vegas, I feel like. Yeah. I'm actually going to come back later in the year and probably play golf around here. So I got to work on that golf game between now and
See,
then.
it was a perfect segue to my next question. How's the golf game, man?
I broke 100 for the first time last year. This year I'm trying to break 80. So we'll see. I mean, it finally got better. What I realized is just, go to the driving range. If we get a meeting canceled, just take 30 minutes at the driving range, just consistently. That mind-muscle connection and that consistency, like anything. Like if you practice enough and you put in enough effort, as much as my daughter hates me when I say that to her, like if you put the effort in and you doing it, you'll see results. It's just like going to the gym. You go to the gym and if you're not seeing any results, keep going.
Right.
And then eventually you will.
There we go. Well, now I got to go to the gym because I didn't go this morning. But John, appreciate it, man. Always good hanging out with you. All right, that's a wrap. We'll have more content coming on later in the week, more episodes coming at you. So you guys know what it is. Be good to each other. Be kind to each other. Love each other. We'll see you guys next time.